Hello and welcome to 5 Habits of. Today we are talking about how you can get better sleep with 5 habits of better sleep with the brilliant Nicole Ratcliffe. Nicole, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Michael?
I'm good. I had a good night's sleep. I'm ready to go.
Woohoo!
So before we get into all of the detail of this, can you tell us just a tiny bit about who you are and what you do?
So I'm Nicole Ratcliffe, and I am on a mission to change the way that people are supported in the workplace with sleep and help close a bit of the gender, career and pay gap by supporting women and parents in the workplace who are at a natural disadvantage through not necessarily always being able to get the best sleep.
Yeah, and that's I love that mission as well, because like it's unfortunate that the primary carers are still predominantly female, and actually that sleep does get interrupted, and it's how can you get the best sleep, and actually with partners as well, how do you get that together and make sure that you're
absolutely. It's the societal and the biological factors that really impacting women. Obviously main caregiving duties, and then obviously menopause gets thrown into the mix as well. Great fun.
Just to mix it up, just as you right. Okay, let's get into this. Although I love a tangent, so we're going to try and be real. We'll try and keep on to sleep as much as we can. If we have more, we might have to go into another session at some point. Let's start off with about getting better sleep. Cool. Habit number 1 for better sleep.
Right. Oh, sorry, I completely misheard that. Right. Habit number 1 for getting better sleep. We want to exercise more, which sounds crazy because that's like, well, why? What's exercise got to do with anything? But actually, the impact of doing exercise on your physical health and your mental health is absolutely, oh, wow. And I can tell you from personal experience, as somebody who never ran in 42 years, who was the person who used to laugh at the people that were running, and going, I'm never going to run. They look crazy. Actually, when I started running in May, the impact it had on my sleep, my mental health, and absolutely everything. So I was able to actually experience what I actually teach people, which was amazing. And the productivity increased just from doing some exercise. And I am a lazy person. So this was a huge, huge, huge thing for me. And I'm saying to everybody, that bit of exercise, even if you can only get in 15 minutes a day, that's going to make a huge impact on your mental health and your physical health and your sleep.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I'm guessing you were doing the other things that you were talking about relatively well, and sleep was something you thought, actually, my sleep's okay. I don't really need to do the exercise bit, but you started doing
I was just a mum with 2 kids in a business, and I had absolutely no time to exercise. And obviously, you got to have decent incomes and stuff like that to be able to go to a gym, and time to be able to actually go. And it got to that point where I just went, I've got none of that. So, and this is literally how small a do it was. I'd drop the kids off at school at 9. There's a running track behind the school. I'd literally go on the running track for 15 minutes, do 2 kilometers, get home, have a quick shower, and I'd be working by 9:30.
I love it.
That's simple.
Yeah.
And it's free.
Yeah, like running, and I do a lot of HIIT because it's free, and you can literally step up. I can step up away from my desk, and I've got enough space to jump around for half an hour and burn some energy, which then sets me up for a good night's sleep, because I can really feel it if I don't exercise. So wholeheartedly in the club of I need to exercising helps me sleep.
But I didn't do it for the purposes of sleep. I did it because I needed to lose some weight. Do you know what I mean? And it was that was my reason. And it was that realization that actually, what I teach, what I've learned and what I teach, I've actually experienced that now. Do you know what I mean? And that felt so different to actually experience that. I've experienced the really negative stuff, the sleep deprivation, but to actually experience something having such a positive effect from doing not really that much was massive.
Okay, awesome. Love it. I love it. Okay, if that's habit number 1, what's habit number 2?
Habit number 2, we're going to cut that caffeine if we possibly can. So it takes about 7 to 8 hours for caffeine to leave your system. So, and the important thing with everything that I'm going to say here with all of these habits is if your sleep's not impacted, if you're not having bad sleep, you don't really need to do anything. It's just if you are struggling with sleep, these are things that you can try to make things better. But caffeine is in all sorts. Chocolate, which is, the depressing factors with that. But, but yeah, caffeine's in chocolate. But it takes 7 to 8 hours for caffeine to leave your system, and that is a stimulant which keeps you awake. So, and obviously, it can also make you tired during the day as well. The following day, if you're not sleeping great, so cutting that caffeine down. What I will say that's hugely important is if you decide that actually you want to cut caffeine out completely, you must do it gradually because it can actually trigger insomnia and headaches. So it ends up being counterproductive.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Like what you were saying about the cutting the caffeine down. I find that occasionally I'll sneak an extra coffee in at 4 o'clock ish if I'm busy. And it's more out of I don't need the perk. I just quite like the routine and the comfort of having that coffee taste while I'm working. I really need to focus. So I've actually got a half and half freeze dries horrible coffee. So I don't drink much of it, but it's half caffeine, half caffeinated coffee and half decaf coffee. So it still feels the same. And I get a tiny, tiny bit of caffeine, but not a full-blown coffee. And it's not a nice coffee.
And it dissolves enough as well for you because the decaffeinated never dissolves properly, does it?
I'd not noticed that. I'm going to have to check next. I'm going to see if half my cup has got lumps in it and the other half is fine. Okay, cool. Yeah, and like it's a vicious circle at that point as well. Because if you start putting more caffeine in and you start staying up later, the next day you've got a bit of a sleep hangover, haven't you? And it just sort of you keep trying to perk yourself up at the wrong points of the day.
Yeah, I've just got to keep going. I've got to keep getting through the day. I'll just grab another cup of coffee just to keep going. You know, I'm just going to grab a Mars bar, you know, because I've got to get through the next couple of hours. I'll just get through to the kids' bedtime. Do you know, whatever it might be. And then before you know it, you've impacted your own sleep. So, I think absolutely. 7 hours. I think at least 7 hours before you go to bed, that's when you should be sort of kind of going, that's the last of my caffeine.
Nice. Okay, cool. Got it. Good. Love it. If that's habit number 2, what is habit number 3?
Habit number 3. Easy to do in winter, not so easy to do in summer. We want to lower that lighting before we go to bed about an hour to 2 hours before we actually get into bed to go to sleep, because that is what kicks the melatonin off. So melatonin is our sleepy hormone. So what we need to do is send messages to the brain to say, come on, time to kick off, time to release. And the melatonin only releases in dim light. Okay, so what we want to be doing is setting the scene. So we're sending the messages to the brain to produce the sleepy hormone to ready us to go to sleep. It doesn't put us to sleep. It just sets the scene. Now, I'll tell you the next bit in a minute, but yeah, I've been habit 4. That's a really important factor. Lower the lighting.
Lower the lighting. Okay, and in the summer, what is the best thing we can do? Because you said it is harder because it's brighter longer.
It is.
Is it about? I've got to see if I can check an urban myth with you. Is it about actually being out in that last sort of hour as the sun comes down and actually your head actually registering that it's getting darker rather than just sort of being?
I'd rather say if you're in the house, shut the blinds because you're not often out and about by 10 o'clock at night, are you? Anyway,
not in this current version of myself.
Once upon a time, that was the joys, wasn't it? Beer garden at 10 o'clock at night.
Absolutely, yeah. One day, maybe when the kids are older. Okay, so make sure that we're letting that melatonin go. In the morning, is there anything that is affecting our melatonin at that point, or is there anything we need to know?
Melatonin's at our lowest. So it peaks at about midnight, then it starts to diminish. It's at our lowest when we first get up because our cortisol starts to rise. Our cortisol, which is our wakeful hormone, that's at its highest first thing in the morning. And that's also a pain in the bum for those early wakes sometimes. You know, when you wake up and you can't get back to sleep. Yeah. That's normally if your cortisol's a bit too high. So if you're stressed before you go to sleep, we're going to talk about this in a minute, but if you're stressed before you go to sleep, and your cortisol levels are just a bit too high, that can trigger some night wakings as well and a bit of early rising, and it make it harder to go back to sleep. So it's doing all the right things in the run up to bedtime to make sure that when we go to bed and we go to sleep, we're going to sleep with as little stress as possible. We've sent all the right messages to the brain and we're doing all the things that are going to help us sleep as well as possible through the night.
Okay, amazing. Right. Love it. Cool. So if that's 3, what's number 4?
Number 4 is to know your body clock.
Okay.
And there's a really easy way to explain this one. And it links back to the melatonin. Do you remember days out? well, not days out. Do you remember nights out before children, where you'd
Yeah.
go out and you'd be out in the club or something, or the pub, and you'd get that slump, and you'd go, oh, can I be bothered? Can I be bothered? It was always around the time you'd have normally gone to bed, or you'd be getting ready to go to bed at home, and then you'd go past it, and then you'd be fine till you were sort of like in the taxi on the way home, and then you'd crash out. And that's when you'd get your second wind, because you'd go past your tired point. You've gone past your window. That's what we need to be doing. So when we feel that kind of, my body's telling me I need to be going to bed, we need to actually listen to that. We're really bad at listening to our own body clocks, and we go, oh, this is a really good program, I'll just watch the end of it. Or, oh, I'm stuck in this series, it's really good, just one more episode. And we don't listen to ourselves. Then we go past the time that we should be ready to go to bed, and we get past it, and we're sort of a bit more dysregulated when we go to sleep. So we'll either crash to sleep or we'll struggle to fall asleep because our brains are wired, and that then naturally impacts the rest of our whole night's sleep and our get up time in the morning as well.
Yeah. Okay. So it's about making sure that when your body starts saying go to sleep, just actually accept it, go sleep, and then
give yourself permission to, because you'll feel it around the same time every night. If we can train ourselves to say, right, do you know what? I go to bed at 11 o'clock, for example. 11 o'clock is the time I go to bed and I get into bed. So about 9, half 9, I'm going to cut off natural lights from outside if it's summer, or I'm going to switch from the big light to the little light, in the house. And I'm just going to start sending the messages to the brain. And then about 10:45, I'm going to start getting myself ready to go to bed. Or actually, if I feel that I need to go a little bit earlier, I'm going to trust that and I'm going to follow it. Because again, as with anything, and I say this specifically with children, and it's no different for adults, because of the way sleep is, the way the sleep cycles work, the first half of the night is predominantly that really deep sleep, the restorative sleep. It's actually really great. So if you do have an early night, you're actually catching up on some of that really good sleep. It doesn't mean you're going to wake up any earlier. It just means you're going to get that really good sleep at the beginning of the night, which is good for the immune system and for healing and immunity and everything else. It's great. Okay. But follow yourself and give yourself permission. I think that's what it is, because we don't give ourselves permission, do we? We just go, oh, I don't have any time for me. I'll just have a bit more TV, or I'll just do a bit more of this, or I'll just sort this out. Do you know what? Things can wait.
Yeah, they can. And I think we're a bit cursed. Like, I think we maybe of a similar age, we're a bit cursed in the fact that we've been hardwired to think we have to sit down and watch TV at a certain point of the day. But you don't need to do that anymore. You can watch your TV program whenever you want. And like, one of the biggest changes I made, I go to bed a bit earlier. I do a workout, but I'll put on the thing I was going to watch while I'm doing my workout. So
perfect.
Yeah. so I get my workout here, because I don't want to work out at 10 o'clock at night, like 8:30.
Well, you don't want to anyway, because you don't want to be exercising vigorously 2 hours before bed anyway, because that's sending the wrong messages to the brain for sleep.
Yeah, that would explain me why on a Wednesday night when I play five-a-side football at 9 o'clock, I don't get to sleep till midnight.
There you go.
But I think that I'm all right, because I'm okay with my sleep. But actually, most of the week, I'm probably asleep by 10 and up at 5:30, and I'm doing a workout, go for a walk at 5:30, then go do my workout at watching a program for half an hour, chucking some weights around. But by half six in the morning, I'm like, right, let's go. And the sunlight's coming up. Yeah.
Me at 6:30 going, you're just about allowed to put the TV on now, kid. It's all right. I'm just going to go over here and just lie down and do some work. You watch TV. And
actually, 5:30 is the reason I get that time. It's because that means by the time I finished, my son is then coming down for breakfast. So actually, my 5:30 is dictated by I want that time to myself to get myself ready and actually wake my brain up properly. So I'm good to go, and I'm flying at that point. Okay.
Tip number 5.
Yes, go for it.
We're going to wind that brain down.
Okay.
Because again, we've talked about there, we don't want to be exercising really too much before bed, 2 hours before bed. We've talked about the fact we might be sitting watching the TV or anything like that. But actually, we want to actually tire our brain a little bit, and it's one of the last things we want to be doing is watching something like the news before we go to bed, because what we're doing is we're kind of sending a load of messages to the brain that get you thinking about things that we probably don't really want to be thinking about. And that goes to bed with us, and that can bother us. It can make us have not very nice dreams. So actually what we want to do is think, well, how do I actually switch things off, especially if you're neurodivergent and things are a bit like everything's everywhere. How do you kind of hone in on this and focus and say, I'm going to tire my brain now. It's time for me to wind it down and actually get ready to go to sleep. And that can be anything. It could be meditation, if that's your thing. It could be doing a bit of yoga before you go to bed. It could be Sudoku, if that's the sort of thing. It could be reading a book. For me, I'm the biggest hypocrite because I actually go on my phone to go to sleep. I know, but that's because there's a game on there that is literally just moving things around, and that focuses me when I get in my bed, because that's what makes my brain go tired, and I'll fall asleep. And this is why I said before, it's all about what works for each individual person. There isn't one thing that's the thing. So if you're struggling with something, because you will hear everybody say, don't go on your phones before bed, don't watch the screens before bed, blue light. Yes and no. You can turn your blue light filter off, you can dim your screens down, do you know what I mean? But it's a funny one, because there's evidence both ways with the blue light as to how much it's really impacting things. But if you're struggling with sleep, if you're really struggling, knocking it on the head, you can try it. If it's not a struggle, then actually it's probably not the end of the world. It depends what you're using it for. But I do about 5 minutes on a game before I sleep, and it just knocks me out.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like the way I fall asleep is I listen to podcasts that I'm interested in, but don't engage my brain. If that makes sense.
That's the thing. It's finding those things. I can't read before I go to bed. It's when people say reading before I go, I can't put a book down. And I've always been like that, even as a kid. Yeah. So I used to be like, I'd have been under 13 because I didn't go in the room up to the top till I was 13. So pre-13, and I used to sit reading till 3 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't put the book. Honestly, I was a kid in junior school because I had to read the whole book. I can't just do a chapter or a few pages. I've never been able to do that. If I'm reading that full book. So I can't do that. So it's always about what's going to be the thing that's not going to get your brain totally and utterly fired up. Whereas some people, like my mum, she has to read before she goes to sleep because it makes her tired. Everybody's unique, and we've just got to work out what is it that we individually need to help us switch off.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. I think it is very much about finding what you, and it changes for me. It changes as well, depending on what's going on in my world. Sometimes I have to try a bit harder to get myself ready for sleep, and other times it's just I'm out.
There is something really interesting though that, and if you are going, because of what happens in your brain while you're sleeping, because it's processing, the brain's processing all the things it's learned. It's kind of going, what do I want to keep? What do I want to get rid of? And if you're learning something, actually doing that not long before you go to bed isn't a bad thing, because then it takes that information, processes it, and then obviously you've kind of retained it for the next day. I used to do it with my daughter when she was little and learning to read. And we used to sit and read the book before bed. It was torture. It was a very painful process, but I used to have to help her an awful lot because she was quite tired, and we'd just do 5 minutes of reading. The next morning when we'd get up, we'd read the book again, and the difference was always dramatic.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You know what that reminds me of? I once worked with a coach, and he taught dyslexic children to read, and he held the reading cards up here to learn to read. And the reason you do that is because when you remember, you look up in your head.
You do.
Yes. Yeah, so he's proper geeky person around all of that stuff. He's like, hold the cards up here, so where you look when you try to remember stuff, because then when they're looking in their head, they'll look up and see it.
That's great for those visual people, isn't it? That's really great for people that learn visually.
Yeah. So absolutely, and what you're saying about the read before you go to bed and then read it again, I absolutely really cement that connection.
It is amazing. That's just how we did things, because again, it's short doses. There's just small bits. Never push it before you go to sleep, because that's just not going to work. But small bits. Yeah,
it is finding those small bits for sure. Okay, brilliant. So let's recap those 5 habits. We're all the way through. Habit number 1.
Exercise.
Perfect. Habit number 2.
What should I do? Which order did I put it in? Cut the caffeine out.
Memory. Habit number 3.
Lower the lighting before bed.
4.
Know your body clock.
And number 5.
And wind yourself and your brain down before you go to bed.
Amazing. That's great. I've really enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you so much. I think we could have hit a load of tangents as well. So well done to both of us for not hitting those tangents.
I could so go off.
If people wanted to find out more about you and maybe like get you to come and talk to their business, where can they find you?
So you can find me at theworkplacesleepcoach.com or drop me an email, hello@nicoleratcliffe.co.uk, or just message me on LinkedIn. Really easy. Nicole Ratcliffe. That's where I do all my talking.
Amazing. Brilliant. Cool. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this and you want to see more conversations like this, this is all on my YouTube channel, and it is you can get prompts in my newsletter as well. And if you think that actually you need a bit of help next year, get your productivity up. I'm running the Productivity Pod, and it's starting January 10th, and we are going to help you deliver a project that matters to you. So if you're putting a website into your business, launching a new marketing campaign, something like that, I can help you in 9 weeks, build that and put it into the world and start 2025 as you really want to. Thank you once again for watching. Thank you, Nicole. I genuinely really enjoyed our conversation. Have an amazing day.
See you later.